Okay, so let's dive right in. It is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026.
Mhm.
And if you have been anywhere near the financial news, or honestly just scrolling through your X feed for the last, what, 12 hours,
Yeah, you know what we're talking
you
about.
know exactly why we are here. Tesla just wrapped up their Q4 2025 earnings call. And, usually these things they're pretty standard
Well,
rituals.
they're predictable. You get the
You
note.
get some margin updates, you get some delivery numbers, maybe a little bit of vague guidance on the next quarter, and that's it. Everyone goes home.
Right. And we did get that. I mean, the stock is ticking up a little bit in after-hours trading.
It is, yeah. But if you were really listening, really listening to the call, the numbers were almost beside the point.
They really were. They were just the background noise for something much, much bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It feels like, I don't know, like we just witnessed a funeral and a birth at the exact same time.
That's a good way to put it.
On one hand, you have the official death certificate for, the car that arguably started the entire EV revolution.
Model S.
The Model S, it's gone. And then in the same breath, they pivot to something that sounds like it was ripped straight out of an Isaac Asimov novel.
It was such a clearing of the deck moment. I mean, you look at the history of this company and you see these really distinct chapters.
Yeah.
The Roadster was the prologue, the proof of concept. The S and the X were chapter 1. Proving an EV could be the best car, period.
And then the 3 and Y were the scaling phase, mass market.
Exactly. That was about becoming a real car company. But what we heard on this call, it was different. CFO Vaibhav Taneja, he actually corrected himself during the Q&A session.
I remember that part.
He said, they aren't just starting a new chapter.
Mm.
He said, and this is a direct quote, we are starting a new book.
A new book titled Amazing Abundance. That's the new mission statement Elon Musk just dropped on everyone. Amazing Abundance.
That sounds nice. Almost spiritual.
It sounds lovely, doesn't it? Like something you'd hear at a yoga retreat. But when you actually dig into the sources we've pulled for today, the earnings call transcript, the Reddit threads from people on the ground in Austin, these technical reports from South Korea, these deep dives on chip architecture, that abundance is built on some incredibly strange, incredibly difficult, and frankly, unbelievably risky technology.
We're so far beyond just making cars now.
So far beyond. We're talking about humanoid robots literally evicting cars from the factory floor. We're talking about AI chips that have a shelf life shorter than a human pregnancy.
9 months. That's insane.
And we are talking about floating solar-powered AI data centers in outer space.
It's a fundamental identity shift.
Yeah.
And to really understand why they feel they can do this and why they're taking these massive risks, we have to start with the bedrock. We have to, eat our vegetables and look at the money first. Because without the Q4 numbers we just saw, none of this science fiction gets off the drawing board.
Right. Okay, let's hit the financials first. Because if you just read the headlines, it says Tesla beats. But, beat can mean a lot of different things in Wall Street speak.
It was a solid beat, for sure, but you really have to look at where the beat came from and what it means. So Wall Street was looking for revenue of around, $24.78 billion?
Yeah, that was the consensus.
And Tesla came in at $24.9 billion. So that's a decent surprise, but for a company this big, it's more or less meeting expectations. The revenue line is steady.
So they aren't shrinking, which is good, but they're not doubling year over year like they were back in 2021 or 2022.
Exactly. The hyper-growth phase for the car business is leveling off into a more mature growth curve. But the bigger surprise, the thing that had all the analysts frantically typing on their keyboards, was the earnings per share, the actual profit.
That was the real story in the numbers.
That was it. They were forecast to hit about 45 pounds per share. They came in at 750 cents. That's an 11% surprise.
Which is not trivial.
It's not trivial at all.
Yeah.
That is a significant chunk of change landing on the bottom line that basically nobody on the street expected to be there.
And for anyone who's been following the story, for the last year, maybe 2 years, the big concern has been margins. They've been getting squeezed by all these price cuts.
Constantly.
I mean, you can buy a Model Y today for so much less than you could 2 years ago. And normally, that's a recipe for destroying your profit margins.
It should be. And that is the magic trick they seem to have pulled off this quarter. Everyone, and I mean everyone, expected margins to stay flat or maybe even compress a little more. Instead, gross margin hit 20.1%.
Your highest in 2 years.
The highest has been in 2 years. And even more specifically, the automotive margins, so just looking at the cars, climbed back up to 17.9%.
So how, that's the big question. If they're charging us, the consumer, less money for the car, but they're making more profit on each car, that can only mean one thing. The car must cost them radically less to build.
Precisely. This is Wright's law playing out in real time. It's this old industrial concept that says for every cumulative doubling of production of something, your costs fall by a consistent percentage.
And they've doubled their production many, many times now.
Many times. They have been relentlessly, almost brutally, hammering down the cost of goods sold. They're squeezing every last bit of efficiency out of the supply chain, out of the gigacasting machines, the battery assembly process, the software. They finally stopped the bleeding from the price wars, and they've stabilized the core business.
And because of that stabilization, they are now sitting on an absolute dragon's hoard of cash.
It is a massive war chest.
Sure.
They ended the year with over $44 billion in cash and investments on the balance sheet.
$44 billion.
And this is where the context is so important. If this were a traditional automaker like Ford or GM, sitting on $44 billion in cash might mean they're about to announce huge stock buybacks or dividends.
Right. Investors would be screaming for a payout. Give us our money back.
Exactly. But with Tesla, that money isn't for the shareholders. Well, not directly, anyway. It's fuel.
It's rocket fuel for the next thing.
It's a bankroll for an R&D moonshot. And they were very, very explicit about this on the call, almost aggressive about it. They announced plans to spend over $20 billion in capital expenditure. That's CapEx in 2026 alone.
$20 billion in 1 year.
Just to put that into perspective for you, that is more than the entire gross domestic product of some small countries, all spent on just building factories and buying computers in a single year.
And the CFO, Taneja, he actually listed where that money is going. It's not just for building more Model Y lines.
No, not at all.
They mentioned 6 factories, including the new lithium refinery in Corpus Christi and the new mega factory for their energy storage business. But he kept emphasizing 2 things over and over.
AI compute and the Optimus ramp.
AI compute and Optimus, that's the signal.
That is the big flashing neon sign. They are using the massive profits from the boring, reliable sedans and SUVs to fund a completely different kind of company. Taneja said it so bluntly, I loved it. He just said, we do hard things.
Right.
The financial stability they reported yesterday is just the permission slip they needed to go attempt the impossible things they're pivoting to right now.
It's basically them saying, look, we made a ton of money selling these cars, and now we're going to go blow it all on robots and spaceships.
In a nutshell, yes.
Ay.
And that brings us to what was, for me, the most symbolic moment of the entire call, the honorable discharge.
This one hit me right in the feels. I know it's just a machine, it's just a car. But when Elon confirmed it, it is time to bring the Model S and Model X programs to an end. Wow.
It really is the end of an era.
I mean, just think back to 2012. I remember the first time I saw a Model S on the road, it looked like a spare ship had landed.
It really did.
Before that, electric cars were, let's be honest, they were deeply uncool. They were weird little compliance cars. They looked like golf carts.
Like the early Nissan Leaf.
Yes.
You bought one because you hated oil, not because you loved driving.
Exactly. The Model S completely broke that mold. It was the iPhone moment for the entire automotive industry. Suddenly, here was this EV that was quicker than a Ferrari, safer than a Volvo, and had more tech than a Mercedes S-Class.
It beat the Germans at their own game.
It proved that an EV could be not just an alternative, but the most desirable option.
And now they're killing it.
Just like that. Production is winding down next quarter, Q2 2026. Inventory liquidation starts immediately. So if you've always wanted a new Model S Plaid, you better get in line now.
It is sentimental, for sure. And Musk even admitted years ago, I think back in 2019, that they were basically keeping them in production for sentimental reasons even then.
Right.
But if you just look at the cold, hard data, this decision was inevitable. In the grand scheme of Tesla's total volume, which is approaching 2 million cars a year now, the S and X were a rounding error.
Just a tiny fraction of sales.
A tiny fraction. We're talking maybe 60,000 or 70,000 units combined in a year where they sell over 1 million Model Ys. They just don't move the needle anymore.
But they didn't just say, hey, these aren't selling well, so we're stopping. There was a very specific, very physical reason they gave for killing them right now. It wasn't just about low demand. It was about opportunity cost.
It's all about real estate. This part is fascinating to me. They need the literal floor space at the Fremont factory,
which is already packed to the gills.
It's one of the densest, most productive manufacturing sites in all of North America. And to build the future they're envisioning, they physically have to dismantle the past.
And what are they putting in that space? This is the kicker. It's not a new, cheaper Model 2 line. It's not more capacity for the Model Y.
They're converting the former Model S and Model X production lines into an Optimus factory,
A robot
a
factory.
dedicated factory for building humanoid robots, with a stated target of eventually producing 1 million Optimus units per year in that specific space.
Okay, can we just pause on that for a second? Let that sink in. They are taking the assembly line that built the iconic luxury sedan that completely redefined the auto industry in the 2010s, and they're replacing it with an assembly line to build mechanical men that they claim will define the entire economy of the 2030s.
It's the most vivid illustration of the pivot you could possibly imagine. Musk called it an honorable discharge for the S and X, which is a very respectful way of saying they're being retired to make way for the new soldier.
And the new soldier is Optimus.
And make no mistake, from listening to that call, Optimus is the new product king. It's the new center of the Tesla universe.
Okay, let's dive into Optimus then, because this took up a huge portion of the call. We've all seen the videos of them, folding shirts very slowly.
Very slowly, yes, and doing squats in the lab.
I'm walking around the office. But Musk was hyping the next generation Optimus 3 pretty hard. He called it a masterpiece.
He did. He said version 2.5, which is what their engineers are working with internally right now, is already phenomenal, but version 3 is the big leap. He used the words exquisite design. We should expect a full unveiling in just a few months.
But what really stood out to me was the discussion around the supply chain. This is where the rubber meets the road, or I guess where the robot's metal foot meets the concrete floor.
This is the real challenge.
Yeah, he kept talking about physics first principles. We hear that phrase a lot with Tesla. What does that actually mean when you're trying to build a robot versus building a car?
Well, think about it this way. If you decide tomorrow you want to build a new car, you can go to a supplier like Bosch or Continental or Magna, and you can buy a steering rack off the shelf. You can buy brake calipers. There's a century-old, mature global industry ready to sell you car parts.
Right.
Now, if you want to build a humanoid robot, that supply chain does not exist. It's zero. There is no actuator store you can go to buy a robot hand that mimics the dexterity of a human hand. You can't just order a humanoid knee joint from a catalog.
So they have to invent the part, and then they have to invent the machine that builds the part.
Exactly. Musk said they have to design every single component, every actuator, every sensor, every bit of wiring from scratch, based on the fundamental laws of physics. And that is why he gave that big warning about the S-curve.
The manufacturing S-curve.
Right. It's the classic curve for any new manufacturing process. It starts incredibly slow, stays slow for a long time. That's the flat bottom of the S, while you struggle to figure out how to build the machine that builds the machine.
Production hell.
Production hell. And then, once you solve the bottlenecks, it suddenly shoots up vertically.
Yeah.
Musk admitted the ramp-up for Optimus will be very stretched out because the entire line is limited by what he called the least lucky, least confident part of the supply chain.
I liked that phrasing.
It's great because if one tiny custom-designed sensor that they had to invent from scratch doesn't work, or if they can only manufacture 10 of them an hour instead of 1,000, the entire line just stops. They can't just call up a backup supplier.
Because there are no backup suppliers. They are the only supplier.
They have the entire supply chain.
But if they pull this off, the economic claims he was making are just staggering. Musk said flat out that Optimus will be the biggest product ever.
Bigger than the iPhone. Bigger than the Robotaxi network.
Which is a bold claim. He's doubling down on this idea that labor is the fundamental constraint on any economy. Everything we buy costs money because human beings have to be paid to make it or do it.
And if you can solve the cost of labor with robots that can do almost any physical task, you essentially solve scarcity.
He went so far as to predict that the deployment of Optimus will significantly move the needle on U.S. gross domestic product.
A single product from a single company affecting the GDP of the largest economy on Earth. It's an incredible claim.
And he mentioned this concept, and I want to push back on this a little bit because it sounds a bit utopian. He talked about universal high income.
Right. Not universal basic income.
No, not UBI, which is what we usually hear about. UBI is basically a government check to keep you from starving when the robots inevitably take your job. What is universal high income?
It's a different economic theory. UBI implies a safety net. Here's just enough money to survive. Universal high income implies that the entire economy becomes so hyperproductive, thanks to all this robotic labor, that the cost of goods and services collapses.
So everything becomes incredibly cheap.
Incredibly cheap. So even if you don't have a traditional job in this future, The cost of living falls so dramatically that your purchasing power is effectively high. It's a vision of post-scarcity abundance.
It sounds wonderful, honestly. Who
Mhm.
doesn't want amazing abundance? But, and here's the skeptic in me, it also sounds like a massive distraction.
How so?
It's like, hey, don't look too closely at the fact that full self-driving still struggles in the rain or with unprotected left turns. Look over here at this shiny, perfect utopia we are building for you in 2035.
That is the cynical view, and it's a valid one. They're absolutely selling a long-term dream to justify the massive capital burn they're undertaking today. It's a narrative to keep investors patient.
And speaking of the future, he did mention competition. Who does he see as the main rival in this race to build the robot army?
China. He was very clear about this. He very much dismissed everyone else in the West, the Boston Dynamics of the world, all the startups. He said China's the only other serious competitor.
And he praised them, too.
He did. He praised their manufacturing prowess and their AI talent, which is, very strong. But he claims Tesla has a fundamental edge in two key areas: real-world intelligence from the FSD data and hand design.
The hand design, it's funny, you don't really think about it, but the human hand is an absolute engineering nightmare to try and replicate.
It's everything. It's our primary interface with the physical world. If a robot can't use a screwdriver or open a doorknob or fold a towel properly or pick up a single grape without crushing it, it's essentially useless in any environment that was built for humans.
So that's the multi-trillion-dollar bet.
That's it. Tesla is betting they can crack the dexterity code. If they get the hand right, they might just win the whole thing. If they don't, they've just built the world's most expensive and sophisticated mannequin.
Okay, so we've got the robots coming to take over the factory jobs. But what about the driving jobs? Let's pivot to the autonomous future. This is section 4 of our deep dive, the cybercab.
The Robotaxi. Production is slated to begin in April 2026.
That is just around the corner. I mean, we're talking a few months away.
It's coming up fast. And just to reiterate, for anyone who maybe hasn't seen the concept art or the prototypes, this thing has no steering wheel,
No pedals?
no mirrors. It is a lounge on wheels.
There's no fallback mechanism. If the computer has a problem, the car just stops. You can't grab the wheel to save yourself because there is no wheel to grab.
It is an immense vote of confidence in their software stack. And they are planning to produce these in volumes that will eventually dwarf everything else they make combined.
But here's the controversy. This is where it gets tricky. Musk claimed on the call, and he was very direct about it, that FSD full self-driving is, quote, 100% unsupervised in Austin, Texas right now.
Right now.
He said they are doing random paid rides for the public, but that word, unsupervised, is a very, very loaded word.
This is where we have to put on our detective hats and look at the fine print and the reports from people on the ground. Because there's Elon Musk unsupervised, and then there's legal reality unsupervised.
Oh, absolutely. We spent some time pulling threads from Reddit, specifically the Our Tesla Motors and Roston subreddits, and cross-referencing with some local news reports. And for a while, there was a lot of noise about chase cars.
Right. People in Austin kept spotting these supposedly unsupervised Teslas, but they'd notice a Model Y following them around like a shadow, just a few feet off their bumper.
There was one really good post from a user, ATX driver, who said he saw one of the cybercab prototypes navigate a tricky roundabout, and right on its tail was a blacked-out Model Y with tinted windows.
So the question is, if there's a human in a car right behind you who probably has a kill switch or can take over remotely, is that truly unsupervised?
Functionally, not really. It's more like shadow supervised.
It's supervised from a distance. But to be fair, Musk did address this head-on during the call. He claimed that as of yesterday, so as of January 27th, they had officially removed the chase cars for these random paid rides in Austin.
So he says the training wheels are now off.
That is the claim. But we also have to assume, based on the reports in the Reddit community, that these rides are heavily geofenced.
Right, they're not going just anywhere and everywhere in the city.
No way. They're avoiding the most complex intersections, probably not operating in heavy rain or at night. It's a walled garden of autonomy.
It's a controlled experiment. Still, it's a significant step. But let's look outside the U.S. for a moment. We found this really fascinating report out of South Korea.
Yes, from the Korea Expressway Corporation.
This wasn't a Tesla marketing video. This was a government agency putting the software through a stress test.
And this is exactly the kind of third-party validation you want to see. They ran a car with FSD for a full day, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the report was surprisingly detailed. They even tested the different driver profiles from sloth, which I guess is the chill mode,
All the way up to Mad Max mode.
all the way to Mad Max, the
Huh.
most assertive profile.
I just love that there is an official government report in South Korea that contains the phrase Mad Max mode. The vehicle was engaged in Mad Max mode and proceeded to merge aggressively.
It is the strange world we are now living in.
Oh,
And the results were pretty good. They rated it as excellent on highways, almost flawless. And in city driving, they said it was better than the average human driver.
but
There's always a but.
there's always a but.
It struggled with the classic self-driving nemesis, unprotected left turns.
The bane of every AV company.
It also had trouble with work zone intersections, where the lines on the road are all messed up or they're confusing cones. And interestingly, it kept trying to violate bus-only lanes.
So it drives like an impatient tourist. Or maybe like a local who knows exactly where the enforcement cameras aren't.
Or a very aggressive taxi driver. But the fact that a foreign government body is taking it seriously enough to conduct these kinds of detailed tests, it shows that the software is maturing. It's not just a weird American experiment anymore. It's getting close enough that regulators worldwide are starting to kick the tires.
And just for all the Tesla owners listening, they did drop a little nugget about the Airbnb model again.
Yes, reconfirming the plan for owners to be able to add their personal cars to the Robotaxi fleet when they're not using them.
The idea that your car goes out and earns money for you while you're at work or sleeping.
But did you catch the subtle financial shift that CFO Taneja mentioned? They're moving fully to a subscription model for FSD.
No more buying it for life. I remember when you could pay, $8,000 or $12,000 and you owned FSD forever?
It really looks like that lifetime buy option is being phased out.
Mm.
He said net additions are now coming almost exclusively via subscription. This is a big deal for them financially. It turns FSD into a recurring revenue stream, like Netflix or Spotify, instead of a one-time hardware sale.
Which is much better for their long-term financials. It smooths out the revenue and makes it predictable, but maybe a little annoying for people who like to own the features on the car they bought.
It's the classic sauce model coming to the auto industry.
Okay, so we have the robots, we have the Robotaxis.
Yeah.
But what is the brain that's going to be running all of this? This brings us to the silicon engine. And honestly, this part of the deep dive, it blew my mind a little bit. The speed at which they claim they're iterating on their own custom chips.
It is completely unheard of. The industry standard for designing, validating, and deploying a new automotive-grade chip is a cycle of 4 to 5 years.
4 to 5 years, minimum.
You design a chip, you validate it, you lock it in, you put it in a car model, and that chip stays in that car for its entire production life. Musk is now talking about a 9-month development cycle.
9 months. That is faster than Apple updates the iPhone's processor. That is barely enough time to physically manufacture a chip, let alone design and validate it.
It's unbelievably aggressive.
Yeah.
He laid out the whole roadmap. AI-4 is the chip that's in the cars right now, the one that gets them to safety better than a human. AI-5 is coming in early 2027, which he says will enable almost perfect driving. But then it gets weird. AI-6.
AI-6 isn't for cars at all anymore.
Primarily. He said AI-6 is being designed specifically for Optimus and for their ground-based data centers. And then AI-7. Well, this is where we start leaving the planet.
Yeah.
AI-7 is being designed for space-based AI compute, which he also referred to as Dojo 3.
We will definitely get to space in a second, but I want to stay on the ground for a minute and touch on this terafab idea. Musk sounded genuinely, paranoid on the call.
Paranoid is exactly the right word. And he would probably quote the old Intel CEO Andy Grove and say, "Only the paranoid survive." He is terrified of the semiconductor supply chain.
Specifically memory and advanced AI logic chips.
And he explicitly used the phrase geopolitical risk.
And we all know exactly what that is a euphemism for. Taiwan.
It's Taiwan. TSMC in Taiwan makes basically all of the world's most advanced AI chips. For NVIDIA, for Apple, for Tesla. If anything happens in the Taiwan Strait, an invasion, a blockade, an earthquake, the global supply of advanced silicon just stops.
And if that happens, Tesla stops making cars, Optimus stops walking, the entire amazing abundance plan hits a giant brick wall.
So his proposed solution is this terafab, a massive, vertically integrated domestic factory in the U.S. that would combine logic chip manufacturing, memory manufacturing, and advanced packaging all under one roof.
But wait a minute. Building a cutting-edge chip fab is notoriously, punishingly difficult. Intel is struggling to do it. Samsung struggled with it. TSMC is the undisputed master of this, and even they are having major problems getting their new factory in Arizona up and running.
It's true.
So how can Tesla, a car company, really think they can just build a world-class chip factory from scratch?
It's an enormous gamble. It's incredibly arrogant, frankly.
Mm,
But if you look at their history, you probably shouldn't bet against them when it comes to building massive, complex infrastructure.
that's fair.
They built the gigafactories in Nevada and Texas when everyone said it was crazy. They're building their own lithium refinery right now.
Mm.
If Musk truly believes that his company's existence depends on achieving silicon independence, he will absolutely pour that $44 billion war chest into buying sand and building clean rooms. Like you said, we do hard things. This might just be the hardest thing they've ever tried to do.
And speaking of pouring money into things, let's not forget the $2 billion investment in xAI. That's Musk's other AI company, the one that's technically separate from Tesla.
It was a Series E preferred stock investment. So it formally ties the two companies together at the hip.
And the synergy there, he used this analogy of Grok, the xAI model, being the orchestra conductor.
I thought that was a great analogy. Because if you have a fleet of 10,000 robotaxis operating in a city, or 1,000 Optimus robots working together to build a new refinery, you don't program them one by one. That would be chaos.
You need a higher level intelligence managing the swarm.
Exactly. Grok is that conductor. It's the centralized intelligence that can understand a high-level command like build a solar farm here and then break that down into thousands of coordinated tasks for the individual robot and vehicle assets. It's the hive mind.
It is the hive mind. That is simultaneously comforting and terrifying.
And, he claims, very efficient. He made a claim that Tesla's AI is an order of magnitude more efficient per gigabyte of RAM than its competitors. And that kind of intelligence density is absolutely key when you're trying to cram a powerful brain into a robot's skull or, well, into a satellite.
Okay, you led us right there. Let's do it. Let's go to Section 6, the final frontier. This was by far the most out there part of the earnings call, but all the sources we found suggest this is a very serious, very real initiative. Space-based AI and energy.
You have to connect the dots. Musk said it at Davos recently, and he reiterated it on the call. He said, the limiting factor for AI deployment is fundamentally electrical power.
Our AI ambitions are outstripping our power grids.
Exactly. These massive AI data centers are incredibly power hungry. The grid on Earth is old and strained. We are literally running out of electricity on the ground to power the silicon brains we're trying to build.
So the solution is to go where the sun never sets.
Space-based solar power. It's an old sci-fi concept, but the logic is sound. In orbit, there's no night, there are no clouds, there's no atmosphere filtering out the sunlight. Solar panels are anywhere from 5 to 13 times more effective up there than they are on the ground.
So the plan is for SpaceX and Tesla to jointly target 100 gigawatts per year of solar panel production for space.
That's the target. But here's the brilliant twist. The old idea of space solar, the one from the 1970s, was to collect all that power in space and then try to beam it down to Earth using giant microwave emitters.
Right, and that's incredibly inefficient. You lose a ton of energy in the conversion and transmission, and frankly, people get a little nervous about giant potential death rays floating over their heads.
My SimCity city always caught fire when I built the microwave power plant.
Exactly. So Musk's plan, and interestingly, Jeff Bezos seems to be publicly agreeing with this basic concept now, is to not beam the power down. It's to send the compute up.
Don't move the energy to the data center.
Yeah.
Move the data center to the energy.
Exactly.
Build massive orbital data centers. You launch the new AI-7 chips into orbit on a Starship. You unfold these gigantic solar arrays to power them. You do all the heavy-duty number crunching up there, training the AI models, running the complex simulations, and you just beam the much lighter, more efficient data down to Earth.
It makes a weird kind of sense. If the bottleneck is power, you just go directly to the ultimate power source. But, I mean, space is hard.
Space is incredibly hard. And there's one problem that is way harder than most people realize. Thermal management.
This is what I wanted to ask you about. We saw some technical reports about thermal management being the single biggest hurdle, but that seems counterintuitive. Space is freezing cold, right? It's close to absolute zero. Why would cooling a computer be a problem?
This is the physics trap that gets everyone. Yes, in the shade, deep space is cold. But think about how your computer cools itself here on Earth. A fan blows air across a heatsink. The heat moves from the computer's chip into the air molecules. That's called convection.
And in space.
There is no air. It's a vacuum. And vacuum is the world's best insulator. It's why your thermos keeps your coffee hot. It has a vacuum layer. So if you turn on a massive supercomputer in the vacuum of space, it's like turning on a giant heater inside a perfect thermos. The heat has absolutely nowhere to go.
It would just melt itself.
It would turn into a molten puddle of silicon in a matter of seconds. You can't use fans. The only way to get rid of heat in a vacuum is through radiative cooling. You have to turn the heat energy into infrared light and physically shine it away into the blackness of space.
So you need giant radiators, like the big white panels on the International Space Station.
Exactly. Massive radiators. Surface area is everything. And this is where the whole thing comes together.
That's where Starship comes in.
That's it.
Yeah.
You can't launch huge, heavy, complex radiator systems on a normal rocket. It's just too expensive, and the payload fairing is too small. But with Starship, you can theoretically throw 100 tons of heat shielding and custom-designed radiators into orbit in a single launch. That's why Musk is really the only one who can seriously attempt this right now. He owns the heavy lift launch vehicle, and he owns the chip design.
It all connects. The sources we looked at from these startups like PowerBank and Orbit AI mentioned their prototype Genesis 1 satellite. It's already dealing with these insane temperature swings from -150 degrees Celsius in the shade to plus 120 degrees Celsius in the sun every 90 minutes as it orbits the Earth.
That's thermal shock. It causes the metal to expand and contract over and over again. It cracks solder joints. It destroys electronics. So when Tesla says they're building AI 7 for space, they're not just building a faster chip. They're building a space-hardened package where the cooling solution is probably fused directly to the silicon itself. This isn't just a chip. It's a survival pod for a silicon brain.
Okay. So let's try and zoom out for a second. We have gone from a quarterly earnings beat to the death of the legendary Model S to humanoid robots.
Yeah.
To building a secret new chip factory to floating server farms in space. What does this all mean? What's the synthesis here?
The synthesis is that the Tesla of 2020, the company that was just a car company, is dead. It's gone. What we are witnessing right now is the birth of an infrastructure company for artificial intelligence.
An infrastructure company for intelligence. I like that.
They're trying to build every single piece of the stack. The bodies for the AI to inhabit in the real world, that's Optimus. The transportation network for the AI, that's the Robotaxi. The brains for the AI, that's their custom chips. And finally, the energy source and home for the AI, that's space, solar, and orbital data centers. The risks they are taking they're almost incalculable.
Oh, they're massive. Geopolitics in Taiwan could cut off their chip supply tomorrow and halt everything. Regulators in California or New York could block the robotaxis state by state for a decade. The basic physics of making a robot hand that works might just turn out to be too hard.
And the capital burn. They are betting the entire farm. That $44 billion farm we talked about at the beginning is all being bet on this one massive pivot. If Optimus fails to ramp, or if the terafab becomes a money pit, or if the space servers cook themselves, the finances of this company get very ugly, very fast.
They're walking a tightrope 1,000 feet in the air with no net.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if they succeed, even if they just partially succeed, we go right back to that new mission statement.
Amazing abundance.
And universal high income. It is a truly utopian vision, funded by the most extreme form of capitalism.
Which really leaves us with a final provocative thought for you listening at home. Musk is painting this picture of a future world where robots do all the physical labor, cars drive themselves, and the heavy thinking is done by AI in server farms that are floating in space, powered by the sun. It sounds incredibly efficient. It sounds abundant.
But it raises the ultimate question. In a world of automated abundance, a world where the machines do all the work and all the thinking, what is the role of human?
Are we the lucky beneficiaries of all this new abundance?
Right.
Or are we just passengers in a giant, intelligent machine that runs itself?
That's the question we're all going to be wrestling with for the next decade.
Something to think about next time you're stuck in traffic, driving your own car, while you still have to. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.